Black Clover Chapter 366 is going to be one of those chapters we look back on in a few weeks and potentially say this is the chapter that might have begun breaking the power scaling of Black Clover, or it's going to be the chapter where we say all the people who freaked out over how strong Ichika was, those people overreacted, because we learned it wasn't just Asta who came back to the Clover Kingdom, but it was also the newest member of his harem, Ichika herself. Things are quickly getting out of hand for the final battle, because having two people who can use Zedden on top of everything else that Lucius has not taken into account with this Asta timeline means that Lucius is in for a bigger world of hurt than he ever expected. However, now that we got the recap portion of the review out of the way, let's back things up a bit and let's dive into the recap portion itself. So the chapter opens up with a flashback to the land of Sun, where Yasuga tells Asta that the time is almost there for Asta to leave, and Asta, being the humble but pint-sized and powerful chat that he is, thanks them for everything that they've done so far with the training that they offered to him. Asta came to the land of Sun absolutely broken and embarrassed by Lucius. His fighting spirit is utterly destroyed, and we saw how much it pained Asta when he doubted if he'd ever be strong enough to protect those who he cared for, and how once he began to master Zedden, we saw the lights come back into Asta's soul as he finally had true hope of regaining that lost, crumbled fighting spirit. It's then that as Asta is giving his thanks that Finral finally shows up, and as the two of them reunite, Ryuya cuts his short and says, hey, you can send one more person through that portal, right? So how about you take Ichika with you? And when she pushes back, he basically tells her, go to the Clover Kingdom, make good with Yami, and then you can come back alive and well. And I think that more than likely this is also something Ryuya wants done, because he knows Ichika knows the truth, while also setting up the door for something that I thought might possibly be the case, which is Yami ends up learning some variation of Zedden, because Ichika will be able to teach him in mid-battle by linking it back to something that Ichika already knows Yami is aware of from being in the land of Sun, which, if this is true, this continues to stack the deck against Lucius with yet another person who's been beefed up indirectly by Asta existing, because had Asta never existed in this timeline, Ichika never would have came to the Clover Kingdom, and Ichika never would have taught Yami how to use Zedden if this ends up panning out, especially if we as a community are right about Yami possessing a devil heart on top of this. After Asta and Ichika step through that portal, Damnatio takes the time to gloat like the standard shonen villain, but in this case, him boasting about utterly destroying the Black Bulls from a narrative perspective is more than just Tabata giving Damnatio the mandatory shonen villain monologue to piss off Asta before he gets to show the fruits of his training. There's actually something deeper at play here than that. This was important for Damnatio to do this to Asta because of the circumstances under which Asta left the Clover Kingdom. He not only got his heart crushed by having Sister Lily reject him, but then he was unable to protect her from Lucius, the rogue wizard king, the very man that Asta aspired to look up to when he knew him as Julius, and he then proceeded to beat Asta down, showing the massive gap in power between the two of them, and to add further insult to injury by having the woman that Asta just confessed his love to be the person who was about to kill Asta. Asta's time in the land of Sun was a combination of healing the wounds physically, the wounds emotionally, and recovering the fighting spirit that Lucius shattered to the point where he didn't even think he could protect those who he cared for. He needed to come back to the continent where the Clover Kingdom was on in order to see his comrades at the Witch's Force utterly destroyed on the verge of death, because this gives him the chance to protect those that he cared for, those he couldn't protect earlier, showing that his time away, it wasn't in vain. And it's important for Ichika to be there to see this as well before she meets Yami, because she was there and she saw Asta at his lowest. She heard Asta say how much the impact that Yami had on his development, and by extension this allows her to see who her brother has actually become through watching the actions of someone like Asta, who is walking in the shadows of her older brother. It's actually very creative writing when you look at it from that perspective. Now, you can call this a stroke of accidental brilliance if you want, but narratively this was the right choice to make, and I do think that this was intentional. I think Tabata is a better writer than he actually gets credit for. Asta immediately uses his demon slasher katana to cancel out Damnatio's attacks. Even the atmospheric magic that Viz Media translates as being air magic that was being used by Paladin, Damnatio, and we see Finral note that Asta has grown more skilled at using his anti-magic, and Damnatio declares that he is someone who cannot be defeated even when it comes to using physical attacks, and that among the Paladins he's the one with that monster power. And as Asta listens to this monologue, he gets serious and he questions Damnatio right there on the spot, after Damnatio basically looked at him previously and said like, yo, this kid's got no magic, scale magic's not gonna work on him, I'll use atmosphere magic. I'll use the power of Ball. The Supreme Devil is inside of me. Asta says, where's this peace and where's this justice that you're talking about for your actions? And this leads to a very pissed off Asta just outright speed blitzing Damnatio, which from a power scaling perspective is absolutely broken, because here's the thing, Asta is using a Zedden attack and he leaves Damnatio speechless, which narratively, Asta busting out the big guns this fast against his enemy while still on base is setting up the stage for Asta to be an utter beast against Lucius, which right now, you know, fans, I'm not saying you gotta be down in the mud, but you gotta be looking at Asta and realize that Asta's definitely leveling up very quickly. So now that we got the recap portion done, let's further unpack what we have here in the chapter. I think one thing we can say safely or with near certainty is that Asta's training in the Land of Sun might have made the boy who can't use magic actually learn the way that others are able to manipulate magic and the way that they're using mana in particular, similar to how Julius was always fascinated with learning about the different types of magic that he encountered. Asta, through his Zedden training, is actually grasping or potentially already grasps the way that other people manipulate their mana, which means that Asta is more dangerous than ever before because he isn't some pint-sized bull in a china shop waiting to go into battle and just absolutely start winging it. He's now got a big brain that is systematically breaking down the mana usage of others and finding the best way to apply his Zedden and its anti-magic combo to give them trouble. And we saw signs of this when Asta in the Land of Sun is like, oh my god, I never thought of a way to use ki like this. Asta has grown. There is something that has changed during Asta's training that we had off screen in the Land of Sun, where he did additional training, and Tabata is setting the stage for it by having us see the seeds for this change by making Finral be the person who verbalizes that Asta has improved the way that he uses anti-magic in a drastic way. Speaking of drastic changes, Ryuya is smart enough to know that the Clover Kingdom and really the whole world, whether they realize it or not, they're all at war with Lucius, which makes you wonder about him sending Ichika to Yami instead of sending one of the other Ryuzen 7 who are actually stronger than her, like say Yasuga. Ryuya didn't have to send Ichika there if his goal was for the siblings to get closer, because he could have done that at any point in time, which means that he has something else that Ichika can offer in the battle that's coming, because there were other members of the Ryuzen 7 who could have been brought along if the decision was made out of a military tactic. There's definitely something cooking up between the two Yami siblings that I do think Ryuya is counting on being a tide turner in the battle coming, something unique to the clan. Potentially it's the Yami clan having that berserker mode, but there's something Ryuya did here that is a bigger IQ play, because as we've seen before, he's far from an idiot, especially with that eye of his. He's smart enough to have considered the moves that he's going to end up making in the end, and it does make me wonder if there's a hidden move that he's setting up, because the Land of Sun is clearly important. We know that based off of this arc. Lucius sent paladins there for a reason, and now we have someone from the Land of Sun on their way to the Clover Kingdom to fight against Lucius. I also think it's also worth noting that Finral was the one who went to Land of Sun, which, given his spatial magic and how it works, this makes a very interesting possibility for the final battle, should there be a need for more manpower. This also makes me wonder, given that Finral has been there, he's likely marked the area, why would Ryuya not send someone else there alongside her by having Finral come back and then teleport back with somebody else? Here's why I think that this is the case. My guess is Lucius, because he has all these clones, and he knows his paladins failed in the Land of Sun. Ryuya wants the strongest of the Ryuzen 7 to stay behind to protect the Land of Sun because he knows Lucius is coming. I might be wrong, but I think Lucius isn't going to be sending a paladin out there. I think Lucius is going to send out a clone of himself. Eventually, he's going to have to travel out there anyway at some point. He wants to turn all human beings into paladins. It's not just the people on the continent of the Clover Kingdom. This reeks of Ryuya making two big moves. One offensive by sending Ichika there with potentially some Trojan horse type of a thing where she's able to bring something out of Yami, and also defensive by keeping his strongest asset in the Rising Sun in case things fail there and they need to defend their homeland. Finally, should Asta actually pull this off, defeating Damnatio, it means that Asta is more broken than we're giving him credit for. Right now, Asta is in his base form, and it looks like he's about to start bullying a very powerful Supreme Devil who's in a Paladin form, which means Asta is cracked just given how much stronger stronger paladins are. Black Asta and full Devil Union Asta, they ain't been used yet, and he's already drawing first blood, and he's doing so casually. We were told years ago by the Witch Queen that all magic is useless before Asta, and with Asta's anti-magic, and now he's training hard to make her words come true. And that's actually my question, you guys. If Asta is able to take out Damnatio right now in base, how strong do you think Asta's gotten in those 3 days? And why do you think that Ryuya sent Ichika there instead of somebody else?